spreading misinformation in regards to the completion of death certificates on a news program, which happened to take place on April 7th. And you could find that one. It was with Chris Berg if you wanted to. And the other allegation was that I provided reckless advice in my willingness to compare COVID-19 and the flu. When I got this letter, I was ticked. And quite frankly, I leaned into the comfort and wisdom of my family to help them, let them walk me and talk me off the cliff. But doggone it, if this can happen to me, my view is it could happen to anybody. I mean, I've been a family doc for 40 years. I work hard. I love my patients. I do house calls. I've been medical director. I've held staff positions in hospitals to help make things work better. I've been in the Senate for 4 years and I've learned a lot. I've never had anything like this happen. Shoot 'em out. 5 years ago, I was named the Minnesota Family Doctor of the Year in Minnesota. And I get this because a couple people complained, and I don't get to know who those people are. I don't know if they're routinely in a political camp, if they're activists. I've gone online and looked at what it takes to complete a complaint that the Board of Medical Practice has to follow up on. It's a one-page deal. You can say what you want. You could be a huge donor for the other party, and I wouldn't get to know it. I wouldn't get to know if you live in my district. I don't get to know anything. I checked. So here I am. I've spent the better part of the last 6 days preparing a response. I understand how important the work is that the Board of Medical Practice does. I mean, physicians do screw up. Two of the big areas where physicians mess up is inappropriate sexual behavior, inappropriate self-medicating, certainly with opiates. But this is an odd position for me to be in, and I am just stunned. But I should have seen it coming, because I saw the threats on social media. I've seen them for the last 2 or 3 months. I've seen them come from physicians. I've seen them come from people in all walk of life. They didn't agree with me. They didn't like it, that I was trying to provide some context for the flu, for COVID-19. We've had some 35, 40,000 cases of COVID-19 in Minnesota thus far. According to the Department of Health people, that might translate into 10 times that many. And if it does translate into 10 times that many, that's 350,000 cases. But in 2018, we had more than 500,000 Minnesotans with the flu. When I say that, am I recklessly giving you advice regarding COVID-19 and the flu? Dr. Anthony Fauci has come out and compared them all the time. Dr. Mike Osterholm has. In terms of the death certificates, on April 3rd, I got an email from the Department of Health that said very clearly that we should report COVID-19 on death certificates if it is assumed to have caused or contributed.
So you just think that it's told you to write it down.
We do death certificates. The official ICD-10 coding for April 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2020, during the time frame in question, says this.
The Ohio Distance and Electronic Learning Academy is a tuition-free online public school for grades K through 12. Taught.
If the provider documents suspected, possible, probable, or inconclusive COVID-19, do not assign U07.1, which is COVID-19 disease. It says, assign a code explaining the reason for the encounter, such as fever, or a cough, or shortness of breath. That's what the official instructions say. So I get this on April 3rd. I end up inadvertently, sort of accidentally, running it up the flagpole with Chris Berg on April 7th. And what happens? The Department of Health, a few days later, comes out with a clarification. And then a few weeks later, they come out with another clarification. And I appreciate it. Fact of the matter is, I'm proud of the Department of Health in Minnesota for saying we are not going to list non-confirmed cases as deaths in Minnesota. We are going to put an asterisk by them, and we'll follow up on those later. But that's not what Pennsylvania was doing. That's why they had to subtract 200 patients from their COVID-19 death count. Colorado did the same thing. New York went the other direction. New York said, we're having more deaths in a certain period than we normally have. So those deaths must be COVID-19. We just didn't pick them up. So never mind the testing. We're adding 3,700 to our total, and that does increase our total by 50%. So I'm in the position where I have to explain that I wasn't spreading misinformation. And I'm not being reckless when I talk about COVID-19 and influenza both being single-stranded RNA viruses that are respiratory in nature with similar symptoms and can be spread through particulate matter and aerosol transmission. I've got an 8-page document that I put together for the Board of Medical Practice, and let me be clear. They do important work, and I'm going to fully cooperate with them. I also have some 70 pages of attachments, and in the attachments, I've got the Pennsylvania Department of Health slashing their numbers by 201. I've got the Department of Health in Illinois, where one of the directors says that just because we put COVID-19 down on the death certificate as cause of death, that doesn't mean the patient died of COVID-19. She said that.
Wow.
Dr. Fauci, when he talks about influenza, he was the lead article in this New England Journal article, and he said this: if one assumes that the number of asymptomatic or minimally symptomatic cases for COVID-19 is several times as high as the number of reported cases, the case fatality rate may be considerably less than 1%. This suggests that the overall clinical consequences of COVID-19 may ultimately be more akin to those of a severe seasonal influenza. That was Dr. Fauci. And, by the way, one of the contributing authors was Dr. Robert Redfield, the head of the CDC. Dr. Osterholm is a well-regarded epidemiologist, and he was saying this in the middle of March. He said, the flu has become a pandemic more than once and has killed millions of people. It still exists today. Unfortunately, we now have on our hands something else, but it's caused by coronavirus, which is acting very much like influenza. Folks, do I feel targeted? Yeah, I do. Do I know who my accusers are? No, I don't get to know. Could I be disciplined by the Board of Medical Practice? Well, sure I can. There's 2 allegations they're investigating.
Imagine opening up your laptop and discovering an extra 500, 1,000, or even 5.
If I have been spreading misinformation.
Fellow Ghanaians, please listen to this extract from the Rockefeller Foundation article. It's actually on the website, a PDF document, and this is the outline. 1. Hypothesize a simulated global outbreak. Required steps, various phases, overall timeline, and expected outcomes. Rockefeller Lockstep 2010. Create a very contagious but super low mortality rate virus. To fit the needed plan. And they have SARS/HIV hybrid research strain. So you see, it is not a purely viral thing. It's a hybrid research strain created at Fort Detrick Class 4 lab from 2008 to 2013 as part of a research project to find out why coronavirus spread like wildfire in bats but have an extremely hard time infecting humans, hence the 4 HIV inserts, also known as the missing key to infect the humans, ACE2 receptor in brackets. Create a weaponized version of the virus with a much higher mortality rate as a backup plan, ready to be released in phase 3, but only if needed. And they have, in brackets, SARS, HIV, MERS, Middle Eastern Respiratory Disease or something. A weaponized tribrid strain created at Fort Detrick Class 4 lab in 2015. Okay? transport the research strain to a different class 4 lab, National Microbiology Lab in Winnipeg, Canada, and have it stolen and smuggled out by China. Wow. On purpose.
I had a dream about that.
And taken to China's only class 4 laboratory, Wuhan Institute of Virology in Wuhan, China, for added plausible deniability and to help cement the wanted backup public script as something to fall back on if needed.
Robinhood is an investing app that lets you buy and sell stocks and ETFs, all commission-free.
Primary script being its natural backup script being that China created it and released it by accident. That's why we said pandemic or accident according to plan. Found all the talking heads, Fauci, Bergs, Tedros, and agencies, WHO, NIH, CDC, UN, that would be involved with pandemic response prior to the planned release of the research strain to control the wanted script throughout the operation. Create and fund the vaccination development and roll-out plan so it's capable of being rolled out on a global scale. Bill Gates' Decade of Vaccines Global Vaccine Action Plan 2010 to 2020. Create and fund the vaccination verification certification protocols, digital ID, to enforce, confirm the vaccination program after the mandatory rollout is enacted, Gates ID 2020. Simulate the lockstep hypothesis just prior to the planned research strain release, using a real-world exercise as a final war game to determine the expected response timelines and outcomes. Gates, and that's Event 201, October 2019. Release the research strain at the Wuhan Institute of Virology is itself, and then blame its release on a natural scapegoat as the wanted primary script, the Wuhan wet market, November 2019. You see how this thing has been really captioned? This is mystery of iniquity, wickedness, cached in secrecy. Downplay the human-to-human transmission for as long as possible to allow the research strain to spread on a global scale before any country can lock down or respond to avoid initial infection. Can you imagine? No wonder the WHO, that's exactly what the WHO did. Downplay the human-to-human transmission for as long as possible to allow the research strain to spread on a global scale before any country can lock down or respond to avoid initial infection. Once a country has seed infection in place, lock down incoming, outgoing travel, but keep the transmission within the country spreading for as long as possible. Once enough people in a country or region are infected, enact forced quarantines or isolation for that area and expand the lockdown regions slowly over time. Overhype the mortality rate by tying the research strain to deaths that have little to nothing to do with the actual virus to keep the fear and compliance at a maximum. If anyone dies for any reason and is found they have COVID, consider it a COVID death, and if anyone is thought to of maybe has symptoms of COVID, to assume they have COVID and consider it a COVID death. So this is what we have been hearing, that a lot of the deaths have been exaggerated. That's why the Americans are challenging the Chinese. The Chinese were not wrong. They were quoting the right figures. But this thing was bred and brewed in America by the Americans, by the depopulation agenda of Bill Gates, Anthony Fauci, and the Rockefeller Foundation. So what they are counting in America, a lot of them has nothing to do with COVID-19. There are many people who have died of other diseases that have nothing to do with COVID-19, but have some of the symptoms, and they just branded all of them as COVID-19. That's why Anthony Fauci could stand and speak with confidence that there will be 200,000 deaths. Shame on him. Keep the public quarantine for as long as possible to destroy the region's economy. Can you see? To destroy the region's economy, create civil unrest, break down the supply chain, and cause the start of mass food shortages, as well as cause people's immune system to weaken due to lack of interaction with other people, bacteria, the outside world, also known as ACA, the things that keep our immune system alert and alive. So this thing we are doing is actually making us susceptible to diseases and weakening our immune system. That's why we should go out. They are joking. Downplay and attack any potential treatments and continue to echo that only a cure is viable to fight this virus, ACA, or also known as a vaccine. Continue to drag out the quarantine over and over and over again in 2-week intervals. Hey! Causing more and more people to eventually stand up and protest or defy them. Eventually,
if you're like me, you probably haven't been driving nearly as much during this quarantine. I found
God have mercy. Eventually end the phase 1 quarantine once they get enough public pushback around June 2020, and publicly say that they still think it is too early to end the isolation, but are going to do it anyways. Once the public go back to normal in course, wait a few weeks and then continue to overhype the research strain mortality rate, August to September 2020, and combine it with the increase in deaths due to people dying from standard illnesses at a higher rate than normal due to having highly weakened immune systems from months of being in isolation, to help further pad the mortality rate and hype the upcoming phase 2 lockdown. So there's a phase 2 lockdown they are planning. Eventually enact phase 2 quarantines October to November on a even more extreme level and blame the protesters, mostly people who don't trust their government already, for the cause of the larger second wave.
Y'all, do y'all hear what this man is saying? Like, this is crazy, and this is just one more thing, tons of things actually, pointing to the times that we are living in. Jesus Christ is coming back, y'all. Like, this September will be the first rapture. And I knew what he was saying, all this stuff, y'all. I felt it in my heart. I knew it all along. It is a plan of the enemy to this is the whole plan of the enemy. And what he said about people coming in and them writing them off as patients or whatever. I knew it. I knew that. I knew that they were, possibly coming in for other things or symptoms, quote unquote, that they say, the symptoms that they claim that this virus gives off. But in reality, it's a whole nother condition. But since you have the symptoms, which they know a lot of these symptoms belong to other diseases and things, that you have the virus. Like, this is a whole plan of the enemy. Y'all better be prepared. Y'all better be prepared for this permanent lockdown that's coming in place. If you haven't checked out my other 2 videos that I uploaded earlier this week, check them out, you guys. It's so many people, reliable sources that's high up in this, in all of this, that's high up. And it's not coming from just other YouTubers. This is coming from high up people in the world. So check it out, you guys. And this is just more confirmation that we will be raptured out of here on the Day of Atonement, September 28th, 2020. So let's listen to the rest.
Told you so. It was too early. This is all your fault. Because you needed a haircut, your freedoms have consequences. Enforce the phase 2 quarantine at a much more extreme level, increasing the penalty for defiance. Replace fines with jail term. deem all travels as non-essential, increase checkpoints including military assistance, increase tracking, tracing of the population, mandatory apps, take over control of food, gas, large-scale shortages so that people can only get access to essential products, services if they are first given permission. Keep the phase 2 lockdown in place for a much longer period of time than the phase 1 lockdown. Continue to destroy the global economy, further degrade the supply chain, and further amplify the food shortages and alike. Quell any public outrage using extreme action and force, and make anyone who defies them appear as public enemy number 1 to those who are willing to submit. After a rather long phase 2 lockdown, 6+ months, roll out the vaccination program, vaccine certification, and make it mandatory for everyone, giving priority access to those that submitted from the start, and have those that are for it attack those that are against it, saying they are a threat to the cause of all. Say, the problems, we can't go back to normal until everyone takes the vaccine. People defying them are hurting our way of life and therefore are the enemy. Can you imagine?
These red wedges are everything. I love a red stick.
Can you imagine, fellow Ghanaians? Listen. If the majority of people go along with the agenda, then let those people enter the new system, new normal, while limiting the minority that defy the agenda's ability to work and travel. If the majority of the people go against agenda, then release a weaponized SARS-CoV, HIV, MERS, tribrid strain as phase 3, a virus with a 30% plus mortality rate as a final scare, to push the minority to quickly become the majority and give a final "we told you so" to those that didn't listen. Enact the new economy model, Microsoft Patent 060606 cryptocurrency system, using body activity data, which is based on human behavior and willingness to submit. Tweak version of Black Mirror's 15 million merits, using food, water, shelter, and other essentials as a weapon of enforcement of the new economic system. Basically, do what we want and get rewarded, gain credits, score and gain more access to things you need to survive, or go against what we want and get penalized. Those credits and those access to things you need to survive. This is recorded. Everything I've read to you, fellow Ghanaians, is what they have planned. And I am passing it around for everybody to pass it around and hear what has been planned. You can see everything that has taken place to date is right within this document from Rockefeller Foundation that somebody has been able to sneak out to us. And I've read it out because it is on the website. They may just take it out so nobody can go and get it again. So now I have it recorded so we can all listen to it, pass it around, and so that those who are saying it is all conspiracy theory can see. That's what the Bible means. The mystery of iniquity. It is cast in secrecy. And we are praying that this year, before the end of the year, God will expose all these wicked deals that they have cast in secrecy to put the world on their knees to get all of us vaccinated. That is the bottom line. That is the bottom line. God bless our homeland Ghana and make our nation great and strong, bold to defend the cause of freedom and of right. Fill our hearts with true humility. Help us to cherish fearless honesty. Help us to resist oppressors' rule. We are resisting this oppression of Bill Gates and Anthony Fauci.
Shh. Right now, there's a closed-door group.
Yes. Your sorrows and the depopulation agenda, we are resisting them, and God is our helper. They will not succeed. I decree in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, let God judge between them and us. They are here to destroy humanity and put us in a panic mode and deceive us and turn the world upside down. The world doesn't belong to these wicked guys. No way. They will not have their way. God will have his way. And what I'm doing now is part of what the church is supposed to do, to resist them. He says the mystery of iniquity worketh, but he that letteth, he that restrains them, shall continue to do so until they be taken out. And so as long as the church of the Lord Jesus Christ is here, they will not succeed.
Amen.